very good rule of thumb is that you check cattle with your eyes and your ears. So if you hear any coughing or see any loose animals, that you will be looking at those as well as working through kind of the testing of the samples as well.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc beef podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan and I'm joined by DairyBeef 500 farmer JP Hammersley from County Tipperary to get an update on his farm, management of calves at grass and the plan for finishing cattle on the farm. JP, you're very welcome. Before we start, can you give an overview of your farming system?
We're farming here in Latin. What we're doing is we're in the calf to beef system, where we're buying calves at around 2 to 3 weeks of age, and we finish them straight through to the factory for around 23-24 months.
And how have you found this spring on the farm?
I suppose this spring started off very challenging. I suppose we got a lot of snow here. Then we went into a storm, and then we had, I suppose, really east breezes coming there for a while. It was kind of affecting some of the sheds, but then the weather changed up nicely, and it worked quite well for us. I suppose we got the yearlings out, got them out early in February, and that kind of helped us keep them going. And also the calves, then we were able to get the first batch of calves out there for the first week of March. So I think spring, it started off challenging, but it improved.
And how did you find sourcing calves this year, or how many or what type of calves did you buy?
Well, we got in about 85 calves. I suppose I've been working with the state dairy farm for now nearly 20 years now. It's only when I was just looking back over the time, it's been a long time actually, but it's worked quite well actually, having that relationship with one farmer. I like the Frisian I get from him because it is a high percentage of British Frisian. So it's around 40-50% British Frisian. So that makes a huge difference. But I also get some Angus as well. So I suppose I have the mix, but I prefer the British Frisian.
And how are those calves being managed at the moment after being turned out to grass?
What we'd normally do is we'd normally get in the calves in batches of 12, and then as we work them through the sheds and get them weaned, we then would move them out to an outer field where it has access to a shed. So it works in bundles of 12. What I would normally do is I would put up a strip wire so that we would just allocate a fresh grass to the calves every day, which is pretty much the width of a stake down along a field. So I think that works very well for us. We're able to get the calves out early. We're able to get them introduced to grass, and we have them on around 2.5 kilos of meat at the moment. What I've been planning to do now is we will then keep them on that up until the 1st July. I will then remove ration from the diet actually in July, and they'll go 100% onto grass, and then I'll introduce meal back into their diet then around mid-September.
And what group numbers do you run for those calves in order to keep them rotated?
I would normally keep them separated up until June, July, and then I just combine the whole 85 together. It's easier for me to be able to manage them, and also it's easier for me to be able to control and manage the grass. If there's a few weaker ones, I would probably pull them out and give them extra feeding. But normally I'd kind of have them all in one bundle.
That's great. And what's happening at the moment with the yearling cattle? How are they being managed?
The yearlings have been doing quite well. I suppose from the weighing come out of the sheds, they were averaging 360 kilos. So they came out there in February, and they've been working through the paddock system. I suppose our paddock system involves the whole farm is divided up into 48 paddocks. That's made up of kind of permanent gateways of temporary wires, which gives us great flexibility, but we also have the option to split them in half if needs be. But it means that we can give fresh grass to the yearlings every single day. So it's a very easy system. As you know, I'm working off farm, so I don't have much time to be spending moving cattle before I go to work. So I can easily just open a gateway, move them through. I can check the cattle as they're going through the gateway, and then kind of close up, and that's it, job done. So that's kind of the way the farm infrastructure is set out. So it works quite well.
And in relation to silage, your first cut silage harvested at the moment, were you happy with this year's yields?
I was. I suppose kind of what I would have done this year, we'd have stopped up the silage ground the 1st of April. I plan to just leave it for 6 weeks and cut it. So I cut it there on the 15th of May. We got a yield of about 6 bales per acre, which I'm happy with that. I suppose what you have to think about is that we are coming out of a winter where it was a very short winter for us. There's a lot of silage still in the yard, so it's not putting us under pressure actually of getting in silage. I can really focus on quality. I could really see from last year from our silage testing that our first cut silage, we're a little bit disappointed on it. Even though we cut it the 20th of May, we only got we had 70 DMD silage. I suppose the second cut was 80 DMD silage and the third cut was 75. So I could really kind of see that the difference between the second and third cuts were we were just giving them exactly 6 weeks between stopping them and from cutting for silage. So having an exact time actually, or a very short time for cutting, I think is actually very important for improving the quality. So because we have plenty of silage in the yard, I can kind of focus on the quality.
And good quality silage is so important for your system, particularly there's no real lag phase for either weanlings or the finishing stock. Do you plan now to close for second cut, or what's your plan for that crop?
Yeah, I'll close for second cut now. It's also kind of for to get in silage, but it's also to be able to control the level of grass on the farm. One of the challenges I would find actually with the 2020, 22, 24 month system is that you don't have as much of a demand for grass in the first part of the year until the calves start getting more of an appetite. So what I have to do is have an awful lot more ground taken out for silage or focusing on taking out forward paddocks. That's kind of where having a second or maybe a third cut is important just to manage the grass and just control the level of grass we have available to us.
And in relation to the yearlings, what kind of targets would you like them to be achieving between now, the rest of the summer prior to housing?
I suppose we'll probably track it even all the way up along to there. I suppose from the calves, from mid-season this year, we would normally get around 170, 180 on the average weight. Going into the sheds then, they're normally around 290 kilos, and coming out of the shed, they're at 350. I suppose then kind of what we're trying to do then on the yearling side of things then in the second season is to have them around 360, 370 kilos for mid-season, because my focus is to start finishing cattle when we start heading into September, October. To do that, we need to have the carcass weight, or we need to have a live weight of above 600 kilos. To have a carcass weight of around 300 plus kilos.
And obviously a good herd health protocol is very important for your system, both for the calves and the yearling cattle. What's your herd health protocol so far for the calves?
I suppose the health of the calves starts from when they actually come in the gate. So when they initially come in, we would normally use an intranasal vaccine, which we would give them after a week of coming onto the farm. We'd also probably look at a dose for coccidiosis as well. And I suppose that is the main kind of vaccines that we do. We'd also actually, before going out on grass, do blackleg or the Covexin 10 that covers the other clostridial diseases as well. And then actually maybe out on grass this year now, I would have gone in with, after about 3 weeks out on grass, we got in with an additional dose for coccidiosis. I suppose from there then, we would have worked on using we would have worked on a dose for worms and stuff then afterwards when we saw actually issues with coughing and stuff on that. A very good rule of thumb is that you check cattle with your eyes and your ears. So if you hear any coughing or see any loose animals, that you would be looking at a dose as well as working through kind of testing at the samples as well. So that's the kind of where I've been working with the calves at the moment. I think the weather has been, with this warm weather and hitting wet weather now, we may see extra worm burden actually coming on the calves. But I suppose it's just to keep on checking them so that we can keep on top of them, that they don't have any kind of come back in performance. I suppose one thing with me is because the calves are out so early, they probably would hit a greater burden of worms earlier than people with introducing calves later onto grass.
And JP, in relation to the yearling cattle, how are they being managed for a herd health protocol for now for the rest of the summer?
For the yearlings, I suppose they haven't got any dose yet. I will be going in now after this weather that we've just had. We've been very wet and from being warm and now going into wet. I'm going to probably go in with a a pour on for them to cover them for worms. And I suppose that'll probably keep them going till the end of the year. Depending on kind of what I'm hearing, or from the samples, I may have to just look at it again, but I think they'll be okay with a mid-season dose.
That's great, JP. Thanks very much for the update.
Thanks very much.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to JP for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.